This is the third lecture on lexical analyzer. Before starting, let me ask you to watch the first two lecture on lexical analyzer before watching this one. In order to build lexical analyzer, the work that we have to do is, first thing is we have to design and identify tokens. In order to build lexical analyzer, first thing that we have to do is design and identify tokens. How do we design and identify tokens? We covered this in the earlier lecture. Followed by this, whatever tokens that we identified in this step, we have to specify these tokens. So the next thing that we do is token specification. The next thing that we do is token specification. How do we specify the token? We specify the token by using regular expression and regular definition. Once again, this also we covered in the previous lecture. Having designed and specified the token, now the work which is remaining is token recognition. So this is the third thing that we do, recognizing the token. So in this lecture, we'll talk about this step, that is the token recognition. The first two steps we have already covered in the previous two lectures. In order to recognize the token, we make use of finite automata machine. Whatever token that we specified will construct finite automata machine for them in order to recognize them. In this lecture, besides token recognition, we'll also talk about and cover lexical errors. What if the input is not matching with the pattern of any of the token? So in this case, there is lexical error. How do we handle the errors? And so we'll talk about this, and in this lecture we'll also talk about a scheme using which you can compress the transition table. So we'll talk about transition table compression scheme. So this is the scope of the present lecture. In order to recognize token, we have to design and implement finite automata. In today's lecture, we'll look at designing finite automata for three tokens. One is a relational operator. The second one is identifier. And the third one is keywords. For other tokens, you can design finite automata yourself, but we'll cover these three tokens and their finite automata in today's lecture. Automata that you see over here is for relational operator. State number 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8, they are final state. Every final state means that finite automata has got a lexeme in the source program. So the meaning or the significance of the state number 4 is, when finite automata reaches a state number 4, it means that it has got a lexeme less than equal to in the source program. Similarly, state number 5 means when it reaches the state number 5, it has got a lexeme less than greater than in the source program. Second point that you notice in this finite automata is, some of the final states are marked with a star while some are not. So state number 6 and 8, they are marked with a star, and the remaining final states, they are not marked with a star. The meaning of a star is that the last symbol is not part of the lexeme. So the last transition is on other symbol, and this other is not part of the lexeme. So when it reaches the state number 6, the lexeme is less than only. Similarly, when it reaches the state number 8, this other is not part of the lexeme. So lexeme for the state number 8 is greater than. So this star is indicating that in order to recognize less than a look ahead of one extra character is required. Similarly, in order to recognize greater than a look ahead of one extra character is required. The next thing that I would like to point is each of the final state. For each of the final state, I have written an action. What is the action in the state number 4? It is return relational operator as a token and less than equal to being the value of the token to syntax analyzer. So we are returning token to syntax analyzer. So this is the action that we are taking in the state number 4. Similarly, in the state number 5, what is the action that we are taking? We are returning, and what is it that we are returning to syntax analyzer? We are returning relational operator as a token and the value being not equal to. So you must note here that when we are designing the lexical analyzer, for this we are designing the finite automata, and then for each of the final state we are also designing the action. So for example, action for the state number 4 is this, action for the state number 5 is this, and so on. So when you design the lexical analyzer, you will also have to specify what action will be there for each of the final state. Action will be maybe varying from one final state to another final state, but for most of the final state, the action will be returning the token to syntax analyzer. In some final state, you may perform something, some other operation also. For example, when we talk about the finite automata for identifier, at that time we'll see that for identifier, when we got them in the source program, then we also enter their information into the symbol table. So action for identifier is slightly different than the action for relational operator. So the point is that you will not only design the finite automata, you will also design the action corresponding to the final state. Let's now discuss recognition of token for identifier and keywords. In the automata shown over here, it accepts both the keyword and identifier. So keywords will be accepted by this automata as well as identifier will be accepted by this automata. In order to differentiate between keyword and identifier, we'll make use of the symbol table. And if you look at this automata, state number 2 is final state, and this final state is marked with a star, indicating that the last transition on other is not part of the lexeme. And look at the action which is associated with the state number 2. In the action, we are giving call to the two function get token and install identifier. What is being done by these two functions? We'll discuss them shortly. But compare this action with the action that was there in case of relational operator. What was the action in relational operator? I was returning relop as a token and value of the token being whatever is there in the source program. For example, let us say this. Compare this action with the action which is there in case of identifier. So action for identifier is different and action for relational operator is different. Now let us discuss what is being done by get token and install identifier function. Since this automata is accepting both the keywords and identifier, in order to differentiate, I will make use of symbol table. What we do is, in the symbol table in advance, we place all the keywords. So if int is the keyword, I'll place it in the symbol table and I will mark it that it is a keyword. Similarly, if, for example, if the for is a keyword, I will enter it into the symbol table and I will mark it as keyword, and so on. All the symbol tables which are all the keywords which are there, they will be entered into the symbol table and they will be marked as keyword. Install identifier function will search for the lexeme into the symbol table. Now one possibility is that lexeme is found into the symbol table and it is marked as keyword. Then in that case install identifier function will return 0. Second possibility is lexeme is found into the symbol table but it is not marked as keyword, rather it is an identifier. Then install identifier function will return the location at which that identifier is found. Third possibility is lexeme is not found into the symbol table. In that case install identifier function will install that lexeme into the symbol table, will add that lexeme into the symbol table and will return the location at which the information was entered into the symbol table. So this is the purpose of install identifier function. Get token function will return identifier if it is identifier and if it is marked as keyword in the symbol table, then get token function will return that keyword as it is. So let us now discuss if int is, for example, encountered in the source program, install identifier function will return 0 for this and get token function will return int as it is. If the lexeme is, for example, POS, install identifier function will look for this lexeme in the symbol table and it is not there. Let us assume that it is not there into the symbol table. Then install identifier function will enter this lexeme into the symbol table POS and it is an identifier, and let us assume that this information is entered at location number, for example 15 in the symbol table. So install identifier function will return 15 and get token function will return identifier. The second possibility is that lexeme is encountered by lexical analyzer and this lexeme is already there in the symbol table. In that case install identifier function will return the location at which POS is found into the symbol table and get token function will return identifier. When lexical analyzer receives input which is not matching with any of the token, then we say that lexical error has occurred. Errors which occur during lexical analysis phase, those errors are lexical errors. Now we'll take few examples of errors and we'll try to analyze whether they will be caught during lexical analysis phase or not. First example is $POS is equal to some expression. And let's assume that dollar is not a valid alphabet for the language in hand. On seeing the dollar, lexical analyzer doesn't know how to process this and it will generate error, and this error is an example of lexical error. Let's now take another example, int a, b, c. In this statement, programmer has forgot to put a space between int and a. Question now is, when will this error be caught? Whenever input does not match with any of the token, we say that lexical error is there. So for int a, whether this will match with some token or not, this will match with the token identifier. So that means no error will be generated for int a, and this will be returned as identifier to the syntax analyzer. When this error will be caught this error will be caught by syntax analyzer. Syntax analyzer will receive the token stream as id, 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 semicolon. Syntax analyzer will see that this is not a valid statement and this cannot be derived from the grammar. So syntax analyzer will generate the error for this. So this error will be reported by syntax analyzer, and this error will not be caught by lexical analyzer. Whenever you compile the program, you would have seen that in one compilation go, compiler generates as many errors as possible if they are there in the source program. So when the first error was encountered by the compiler must have recovered from that error so that it is able to continue the scanning, so that it is able to continue the compilation process. In the similar way, when lexical analyzer encounters an error, it tries to recover from the error so that it is able to continue the scanning. Now the question is, what is the possible error recovery mechanism in order to recover from the error at the lexical level? Let's discuss some error recovery mechanism. I can consider the source program to be a sequence of lexemes. So let's assume that this is lexeme number 1, followed by this I have another lexeme, let me call it lexeme number 2, and then I have the third lexeme. And while scanning the lexeme number 1 at this character, lexical analyzer encountered some error. Question now is, how does the lexical analyzer recovers from this error? Since error is there in the lexeme number 1, so one error recovery mechanism could be that whatever are remaining characters which are part of lexeme number 1, I simply discard them and I start or resume scanning from the beginning of the lexeme number 2. So this error recovery mechanism is known as panic mode recovery mechanism. In this error recovery mechanism, I keep deleting when the lexical error occurs, I keep deleting the successive character till I find the character from where a well-formed token can be identified. So this error recovery mechanism is known as panic mode recovery mechanism. You can also adopt other recovery mechanism also in order to recover from the error. For example, in order to recover from the error, I can delete one character. So in this example, when the dollar error was generated at the dollar, I can simply delete the dollar and continue the scanning. In a similar way, in order to recover from the error, I can also insert a missing character, or I can replace a character by another character in order to recover from this. So you can employ different mechanism for recovering from the error. Implementation of lexical analyzer has to store a transition table. Transition table is a two-dimensional table where one dimension is indexed using states and the second dimension is indexed on the basis of input alphabet, and since we are using ASCII character as input alphabet, so second dimension is indexed on the basis of ASCII character. Number of ASCII character is 128, and typical number of state for a programming language is about few hundred. So you can multiply these two figures in order to determine the size of the transition table. Now we are looking at compressing this transition table, storing it in a reduced space. For this, the scheme that we discuss is based upon 4 arrays. The first one is default, base, next, and check. First of all, we'll understand the purpose of base, next, and check, and later on we'll understand the purpose of default array. Corresponding to each state, there is an entry in the default array and in the base array. So this entry is corresponding to the state number 0, and this entry is corresponding to the state number 1. Similarly, in the next array and in the check array, there is a block of memory allocated for each state. So let us assume that this is the block of memory allocated for state number 0, and this is the block of memory allocated for state number 1. What is the purpose of each block of memory that is allocated to a state? The purpose is to store the transition. So the block of memory which is for state number 0 stores transition from state number 0. Block of memory which is for state number 1 stores transition from state number 1. So that means this will be storing transition from 0 on 0, and this stores transition from 0 on 1. This stores transition from 1 on 0, and this stores transition from 1 on 1. So the base location of the block which is assigned to a state is stored in the base array. This is the block which is assigned to the state number 0. The base location of this is 0, so the 0 is stored over here. This is the block which is assigned to the state number 1, and what is the base location for this? Base location for this is 2, so 2 is stored over here. Whatever is base location to that, if I add the input symbol, I'll come to know at what place the transition is there for that input symbol. So from 0, if I want to know what is the next state on 0, so I perform 0 plus 0. This is where the corresponding transition is there. So 1, the next state is going to be 1. From 0 on 0, next state is 1. From 0, let me write it actually. From 0 on 0, in order to determine this, I take the base location for this state. Base location is 0. To this I add the value of input symbol. I obtain 0. So that means at this location I have transition stored for 0, 0. Let's now look at this one, 0, 1. What is the base location for state 0? Base location is 0. To this I add the value of the input. It is 1. So that means at location number 1, it is storing the transition for 0, 1. So the next state is 2. From 0 on 1, next state is 2. Let's now look at 1, 0. What is the base location for the state number 1? Base location is 2. To this I add the value of input alphabet. It is 0. I obtain 2. So that means location number 2 is storing the transition corresponding to 1, 0. And similarly I can write for 1, 1 also. So the purpose of the base array is to store the base location for the block which is assigned to a state, and the purpose of the next array is to store the next state for the transition. Let's now understand the purpose of the check array. This determines whether the entry is valid for a state or not. So since these two entries are for state number 0, so I write 0 over here, indicating that it's a valid entry for state number 0. Now these two entries are for state number 1, so I'm writing 1 here, indicating that these two are valid entries for state number 1. So that is the purpose of the next, and that is the purpose of the check array. Whatever we have discussed just now, the code for this is shown over here. This function determines the next state for a state and the input symbol pair. Let's now go into the details of transition table compression scheme. In the previous example, from state number 0 I had 2 transition, and from state number 1 I had 2 transition, and these 4 transitions were stored in the table. So actually there was no compression taking place, but I had taken that example in order to explain you the scheme. Now I have slightly modified the example. I have taken the sigma to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So there are 4 input symbols. In the previous example, sigma was 0, 1. So that means from any state, 4 transitions are possible. So now the block of memory that I will assign in the next and check array for any state will have a size of 4 in order to store the 4 possible transitions from any state. So if I look at this, this is the block which I have assigned to the state number 0. This one is storing the transition from 0 on 0. This one is storing the transition from 0 on 1. This one is storing the transition from 0 on 2, and this one is storing the transition from 0 on 3. And the base location is 0, so here I am storing 0. Since in the finite automata I have transition specified from 0 on 0 and 1, but I do not have any transition specified from 0 on 2 and 3, so that means these two entries which are corresponding to transition from 0 on 2 and 3, I am using it for state number 1 since I do not have any transition specified from state number 0. So in this case, these two entries are corresponding to the state number 1, so that is why check entry is 1 here, check entry is 1 here. So these two transitions are corresponding to the state number 1, and these two transitions are corresponding to the state number 0, and the same block is assigned to the state number 1 also, so the base location is once again 0. So now I have if I use the two-dimensional table for storing the transition, and if I just consider the state number 0 and 1, what is the size required? 2 multiplied by 4, that is 8. If you look at this, how many entries are there in this? There are only 4 entries, so a reduction by half. So I'm just storing the 4 transition, and if I store it in the two-dimensional table manner, then in that case size is going to be 8 if I only consider the state number 0 and state number 1. So now you can see as to how transition table compression algorithm is working, as to how this is compressing the size for storing the transition. Let's now understand the purpose of the default array. I have slightly modified the previous example, and now I am taking sigma from 0 to 6, so there are 7 number of input symbol. I have also made modification in the finite automata. I have introduced an error state, that is state number 3. Whenever there is error in the input symbol in any of the state, I am going to the state number 3. So 3 is denoting that there is error in the input pattern. So from 0 on 1, I am going to the error state number 3. So if I ask where will I go from 0 on 1, this is equivalent to saying where will I go from 3 on 1. Similarly, if I ask where will I go from 1 on 0, this is equivalent to saying where will I go from 3 on 0. So the point is 3 is default state for state number 0 and 3 is default state for state number 1. And if you look at the table, here I am storing that 3 is the default state for state number 0 and 3 is the default state for state number 1. Now from 0 I have only one valid transition, that is on 0, so that transition is stored over here, and the transition on from 1 to 6 that is taking me to the error state, so that is being handled through the default state. So that means if I consider, as per the scheme, if I determine what is the next state for 0, 1, I pick up the base location for this, it is 0, I add input value, I go to the entry number 1, entry number 1 is entry number 1 in the next uncheck is marked for the state number 1. So this is not a valid entry for the state number 0. When I reach the entry in the next uncheck and it is marked for some other state, then I do not consider this entry, rather I consider the default value. So in this case, I will determine the next state on the basis of this 3 comma 1. So if I first of all determine 0 comma 1, I reach the first entry in the next uncheck, and since it's not a valid entry for the state number 0, then I pick up the default state, which is state number 3, and this is equivalent to saying what is the next state from 3 on 1, and from 3 on 1 next state is 3 itself, that is stored in the transition table. So if I consider the number of input symbol, it is 7, and how many states are there? 4 states are there. So if I store the transition table, if I use the 2D transition table, how many entries will be there? There will be 28 number of entries. How many entries are here? Lesser than the 28 number of entries. So you can see that compression is achieved, and the purpose of the default has also been discussed in this example. Look at another example where default array has been used. This automata is recognizing the keyword if, and this one is recognizing token identifier. When lexical analyzer scans small I, it goes from state number 3 to 4. In state number 4, when it scans small f, it goes to the state number 5. Now in state number 5, if it scans, for example, the white space character or punctuation symbol, then it goes to the final state, that is 6, and it has successfully recognized the keyword if, and if keyword is returned to the syntax analyzer. On the other hand, if in the state number 5, if it receives, for example, another alphabet, let's say a small b, then in that case it is not the keyword if, but it is an identifier. So IFB means it is an identifier. So in this case, what would be the equivalent state at this stage had we been running the automata for identifier? On seeing small b in the state number 5, corresponding state in the identifier finite automata will be the state number 16. So what we do is that for the state number 5 in the default array, we are saying that 16 is the default state for state number 5. So if we obtain some other symbol and if we fail to recognize, for example, the if keyword, then in that case we'll switch over to the automata which is recognizing identifier, and there we'll go to the state number 16. 16 is the default state for state number 5.